Today. And thank you for joining us today for our program entitled Inequity, Inequality, and Exclusion. Oh my. Um, we are excited to have a great group of speakers today, and it's my pleasure to introduce Shay Cook, who is the CEO and founder of Crusaders for Change. She is also our incoming board chair for the Chamber for 2024, and she's the chair of our IDEA Committee, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Awareness. So, Shay, thank you so much for all you do, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Christy. Good morning, everyone. It's like Johnetta said, Dr. Johnetta Thurston. It's so wonderful to see everyone this morning. As the chair of the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Awareness Committee, we plan on putting on more of these kind of workshops in the future, including this one, Inequity, Inequality, and Exclusion. Oh my. We want to just plan to blow your mind away with super important objectives centered around diversity and equity and equality, exclusion. And presenting today will be the amazing Dr. Johnetta Thurston, who is the CEO of JDA Management and Consulting Group. I'll let her introduce herself some more once we turn it over to her. And facilitating our Q&A, if she can join us today, will be Sonja Gladwin, a director of corporate training group of Anne Arundel Community College. So this will be an educational and interactive session, as Johnetta, I'm sure, is going to share. You can please chime in, use the worksheet. It should be in your email box now to stay engaged with this presentation. And we hope you all will learn something today. So a special thanks to Central Maryland Chamber CEO and President Christy and her team, especially Olivia, for their continued support, and Kim and now Jennifer, who's new to our team, for their great work and continued support of all of our events. So I'm turning it over now to Dr. Thurston.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I am so glad that we are all here together today. I am Dr. Johnetta Thurston, and as she said, I'm the CEO and founder of JDA Management and Consulting Group, and I'm a member of the board at Central Maryland Chamber, and I am a member of the IDEA Committee. I am so glad that you have made the arrangements to be here with us today. What I would like for us to come away with is feeling like a family, that we're all sitting down, whether we are at a mountain lodge or on the beach or wherever, and just have a conversation. Just have a conversation about all of the things that's happening to you, how you can make things better in this world. So welcome again to Inequality, Inequity, and Exclusion. Oh my. Hopefully this becomes a transformative journey where we can explore the beauty and the significance of diversity. We don't want diversity to just be a buzzword, but we really want it to be a catalyst for change in you and a change in your organization. But can you imagine a world where everybody is the same? Oh my God, how boring. Have you all seen that commercial where the dry eye guy? He is so boring. And when I think about diversity, I think about him. He is just straight, he really is the dry eye guy. But also compare that or contrast that to a world that has a beautiful tapestry of vibrant colors and forms and patterns and textures, and how much more exciting that is than the plain old dry eye guy. Today, we want to give you maybe a foundation, a base level of some of the understanding of some of the terms. We're going to have some diversity conversation, and we're going to come away with a fresh cup of coffee and some really good thinking about diversity. Okay? All right, let's get started here. Now, these are some of the objectives that we want to talk about. Now, we don't claim to hit every point on diversity and inclusion. We just don't have the time to do that this morning. But here are a few of the objectives that I've come up with, And I've asked for others to help me come up with some objectives of what we want you to walk away with. What will be your takeaway? We want to start a conversation. We want to pique your interest, increase your awareness, and encourage your involvement with your organization to move the needle when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So our first objective is to define and describe diversity and some of the other related terms. There are so many terms every day that you pick up, seems like it's something new. First, it was just DEI, then it was DEIA, then it was DEIB. So we're just going through the alphabets. So we're not going to touch on every single alphabet, but we're going to talk about some of those related terms. We want to start the diversity conversation. We want you to share some of the conversations and experiences that you've gone through. How did it affect you? What do you see in your environment? Whether it's a new restaurant, whether now we have all these things. When I went to Greece with our beautiful president of the chamber, we noticed that there were no ADA requirements anywhere. So you don't think about these things because we see them every day, but let's talk about some of those. Then we're going to touch on the benefits of diversity and inclusion. And then we want to give you a few ideas of how to get started. And we have some additional considerations and ideas, as well as some additional resources. Okay, let's start by defining diversity. So I pulled 3 of the definitions from 3 different areas. From the Oxford English Dictionary, they say that diversity is just a diverse range of variety. We all know that, right? And then Webster says it's the condition of having or being composed of different elements. And then you have the Society of Human Resource Management. This is how they define diversity. It's the similarities and differences between individuals accounting for all aspects of one's personality and individual identity. Now, that includes, I made a little note here, includes your personality, your gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, and race, national origin, age, physical ability, family status, socioeconomic status, veteran status, and organizational function or level. And there's so many other things. They just, just think it's just one thing. It's just variety. But look how many of the varieties I just named. And often people believe that variety and diversity is measured and defined by their workplace demographics, right? And it just stops there. But it is so much more. Let's look at this next slide. This next slide, we're going to take a look at diversity from the Ohio State University Administration and Planning. What is their take on diversity? Let's look at it. Okay. You all hear that?
What is diversity? Sometimes it's what you see. Gender, skin color, age, physical abilities. Sometimes it's what you don't see. Ethnicity, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, values, beliefs, personality. Our differences define us, allow us to make unique contributions, make life interesting. In administration and planning, we're opening up to embracing diversity, demonstrating respect, creating a welcoming environment, working together.
Now, had you all thought about all those different aspects? What do you want diversity to do at your organization? Gives you something to think about, doesn't it? You all can talk back to me. I love it. I love it. I challenge you to talk, all except Mike. I think Mike is still on here. Mike, you don't have to do any talking back. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll keep my mic off so I can talk.
Wait a second. I'm here.
Okay. Look, we sent you, I think Olivia attached a worksheet.
She did.
Okay. In that worksheet, let's go to the next slide, Olivia. We have some terms. These are the other related terms that we talked about earlier that we're going to touch on this morning. I want you to do this little brief exercise. I want you on that piece of paper. Nobody's going to look over your shoulder. I promise you, we will not look at what you're writing. But I want you now on your own, before we dive into this, come up with your own definitions for these terms. Mike, I don't see you writing. I want you to actually, if you are, and you don't necessarily have to write, but it really,
you can type it up.
Yeah, you can do whatever. What do you think these things mean? Now, if you want to share those things with us, we're going to open it up for you to do that. As you all know, I can do some talking, so I can do some talking by myself. Mike, I know, can talk, and oh my God, Shay can. So we should be having conversations here if you all want to. I really would love that. What do you think equality is? What is it? And then oftentimes people say that equality and equity are the same things, and you can use it interchangeably, but can you? I challenge you, can you? How about the difference between inclusion and what is exclusion? Anybody?
All right, I'll give a go for inclusion. Providing an environment that is welcoming to all.
You know what? Who is this?
We found this on the web.
Adam. Adam, did you look that up before?
No, I just wrote it.
No, didn't that sound like a standard? Really, you're good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing. Dan or Mike, and you can look at any of these terms. Segregation and integration. We all have heard that. Assimilation, bias, prejudice, stereotype, racism, sexism, colorism. Hopefully some of these terms will, you'll come away with a new meaning. Or what do you think it is?
So
All right.
I'll go to the first one.
Okay.
Equality to me is equal opportunity regardless of gender, race, religious background. But to me, it's having the same equal opportunity for all.
Okay. Wow, look like you look yours up too, but you can't.
No, I did not.
Yes, it up. Okay. No, thank you, Mike. I appreciate you sharing.
Dan has his hand.
I was going to say Dan has his hand up.
Oh.
Okay, somebody's gonna have to help me because I can't.
Yep, I got you. Yep.
Okay, babe. Thanks.
Yes. So for equity, what comes to mind is everyone gets the same of something. That's regardless of whether or not they need that amount or whatever the resource is. So everyone gets the same, and the downfall is that depending upon where people are, that may be not needed, or whatever is given is not enough. So that's a quick definition that comes to mind.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Kim, Chrissy, you all can jump in too. I know that you're here to support, but I would love if you all jump in as well. Gwen, Patricia, anyone. But if, we can go on and define these, but does anybody else want to take a stab at any of the others that's on your list? What is assimilation? I'm skipping around now. What is assimilation? Let's talk to Jackie. You want to take a stab at that? What is assimilation? Okay, we can't hear you. You can, yeah.
Oh,
there-
I'm sorry. I still have my thing on. It's really trying to make people sort of fit in to what already exists. You know, you can't just bring yourself how you are. You have to kind of fit in. I don't know how else to. I never
Right.
thought.
Yeah, no, you're doing a good job. You still get you still get that A. For
Thank you. I'll take it.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for, sharing your thoughts. And you can look at this list. And as I said earlier, every term is not here. You don't see unconscious bias on it. You don't see lookism. There are so many things that you don't see here, but we're going to go and look at some of these other terms. Let's go to the next slide, Olivia. Okay. We talked about equality and equity. And I said earlier, a lot of people use these terms interchangeably. They are not the same, right? And I think Mike and some others may have helped us out with the definition of equality. It assumes that everyone benefits from the same treatment. Everyone gets the same support. Whereas, look at the picture on your left. You see everybody, you get a car, everybody gets a car, but everybody gets a box. But guess what? Does that look like it really helps everyone? Looks like it's kind of missing the box. It's nice to know that everybody can get a box.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at, usually when we're looking at equality, it's the same, especially in status, especially in rights, and especially in opportunities. So where is the difference? Let's look at equity. All right, that first person on the left, he didn't really need a box, did he? He didn't really need a box. The person in the middle needed a box, but he only needed one box. And the person on the right-hand side, they needed two boxes, right? Everyone gets the support they need according to what they need, right? According to what they need. And I tried to write this down so I wouldn't sound crazy. Everyone gets the support they need, which results in equity. Equity realizes we do not all start from the same place. Therefore, there must be acknowledgement, noted, and make adjustments to account for those imbalances. Doesn't that make sense now? Yeah, because the guy on the left is already taller. He's already got the advantage. And then there are even some depiction of this where they see that fence removed.
Mm-hmm.
They see that fence as the particular thing that's stopping, that's removing that, what we would consider the systemic thing that is the barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Let's remove it completely and everybody can see without any support, without any uplifting. Everybody has it. Just remove the barrier. Just remove the barrier. Excuse me. I'm so popular.
You are that. You are.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments to say about that? Does that make it a little clearer for you? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful image every time I see this.
Yeah.
And just even saying remove the barrier, the systemic issue, the systematic issue, whatever you want to call it, is powerful. Yeah.
So that is, so I love this image as well. Now let's go to this next slide. Okay, now this is where I think Adam helped us out with this when we talked about inclusion and exclusion. Okay. And I want to go a little step further. We all know that inclusion is that everybody's here. Exclusion, you're out. You're on the outside. You're not part of this in crowd. But listen to this. Inclusion is to feel comfortable and confident to be yourself and work in a way that suits yourself and deliver the business needs of the organization. And everyone comes away feeling valued and they add value. Wow. That's a little deeper, isn't it?
It really is.
Wow. Do I get a high five on that?
Get an amen.
All right. All right. And I wanted to talk about that, and that leads us to our next slide. I love this one, because not only do you get a chance to see inclusion and exclusion, let's look at these other issues here. Everybody, we all are here in America. We all have dealt with segregation. Or if you have not, your grandparents or your parents or someone in your lineage dealt with segregation and integration. So this will gives you a graphic description of what that looks like. This is a graphic, it's the separation or the isolation by class or race or ethnic group or whatever. You're in two separate corners. But even with integration, it doesn't always, it still doesn't feel equal, right? Mm-hmm. You're just taking that smaller group and putting it into that larger group, but they're still not really getting the same access, even though I know I'm not going to get started on that. That's what it means, okay? But look at assimilation, and I think that maybe Jackie helped us out with this. It's the process of becoming similar to others, the larger group, by taking in and using their customs, using their culture. You got to come over here and be like us. Let's think about IBM. Remember the old IBM where everybody had on the blue suits and the white shirts? Yeah. That's because they wanted everybody to look the IBM way. And when we actually got started, they say that we are a melting pot here in the US now, but they want everybody to come over and do it like we do. You often hear people say, oh, we don't do this in the country. Go back where you come from. Well, hey, I came from North Carolina in the country. Okay. So, but they're talking about do things the way that we do them here. That's what's assimilation. The smaller groups just start doing what the larger group does. And it's not necessarily thinking about your culture. And I remember the first time, can I talk about me right now? I remember the first time that I was teaching a class and I had my evaluations. And I got some, and I'm used to, I talk pretty well. So I'm used to getting high ratings. And I got some kind of mediocre ratings. I'm like, what's going on? Are these people crazy? I'm good. But we had to think about it. And I looked. Most of the people, it was an engineering background. Most of them were male. Most of them were Caucasian, but a large percentage of them came from other cultures where women were subservient. Okay? They didn't teach men. They didn't take leadership roles, but they're in America now and they're with this company and they're trying to do what the company says do, and they're doing this training, but their culture is still their culture. And then it dawned on me, and someone else, it really helped me see this. They don't see women as being in the position of where you are. And it was reflected in their ratings. Mm-hmm. And when I was working with someone and they pointed that out, and the people that we were doing the training for said, you know what, you're right. And they said, we're looking at all your ratings. You have 4s and 5s. All the way down the line. And this has been a couple of years. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay. And then all of a sudden you hit and you get a 3. What has happened here? And that helped me understand it. But I was depressed thinking that, something had really happened significantly here. So anyway, that's my little short story. We can go on. Next slide. Okay, let's look at bias and prejudice. Bias and prejudice. Bias is prejudice in favor of a person or a thing or a group over another, right? And it's always usually considered unfair. For example, I graduated undergrad. I went to UNC Chapel Hill. And I used to be in an office where I had a lot of paraphernalia from the Tar Heels. And people would come in and try to connect with me because they would think that would be swaying. So sometimes we have to get rid of things, especially when we're interviewing and we're doing these things, because it will help kind of tilt things one way or the other. So that's bias. Prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not even based on reason or actual experience. Look at the triangle here. It says, hi, I'm a triangle. What does circle say? I hate triangles. He doesn't even really have any reasons for hating the triangle, except that he's a triangle. Isn't that interesting? Someone saw this the other day and they thought it was kind of interesting, but that points out how prejudice works, right? Am I moving too slow?
No, you're good.
Okay, because I don't want to take up. I want to give some time for you all to do some things.
No, you're good.
Let's go to the next one. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. Okay, we're talking about stereotypes and racism. Look at the picture. I want you to look at that. Now, the picture on the left is an American kid. Looks what we think is in their head. Celebrity, texting, all this stuff that we think our kids are doing. The millennials, they're out there doing these things. But when we see a Chinese kid, look, do you think that they're all thinking about science and math and these other things? But we have a tendency to think like that. How about, I have someone in my life that they were dating someone, and the guy was an African-American, and he was 6'9". And this is really actually my daughter's boyfriend. And everywhere we would go, people would look at him and go, oh my God, I know you play basketball.
Basketball. They did that to me growing up. Yeah.
He could not dribble if his life depended on it. But these are the type of stereo. And just like Chinese or Asian, they have got to be good in math. That's what we do. We stereotype. It's a widely held, fixed, but an oversimplified image of a person or a type or thing, something like that. What about racism? Anybody want to help me out with racism? What do you think racism is? Anybody? I see Sonja's on the line. Sonja, want to help me out? Look at her.
The over-characterization of applying an assumption to a group of people.
There you go. And typically that group of people is a minority, right? It's a discrimination, an antagonism of an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership because they are a member of a particular race, ethnic group, usually one that is a minority. Okay. So that's really, really interesting. Anyway, we're going to keep going. Let's go on so we can get through these terms. And you all stop me if you say, I don't understand this. But I know you all are, really, really intelligent, and know these things, but help me out. Sometimes I might be off, so help me. Okay, let's look at colorism and sexism. Now, we usually look at sexism and we know that it is discrimination or prejudice against people with someone that's a woman, usually a woman, stereotyping usually against a woman. And then someone looked at this picture the other day and they saw a woman in the background. But guess what? It may be rare, but women do that. Mm-hmm. And if you would notice, even though she's a woman, she's dressed differently. She is a Muslim woman. So we have a tendency, when I say we, I'm talking about everybody, to sometimes put people in a particular group and treat them differently. What about colorism? What is colorism? Usually that's something that happens actually within a race. We can do it without, we see it people outside of our race, but they discriminate based on the tone of your skin. But particularly if you are of the same race. Can you think of an example, Shay, that we could bring up for everyone that they may?
Which one, sexism or colorism?
Colorism.
Okay. Well, I know, and I mean, I'm just going to use a personal example. Within my family, we have people with darker skin tones, browns, darker browns like me, and lighter. And unfortunately, we have family members, including grandparents and stuff, that favor the lighter skin family members over the darker skin. So I've always seen right blatantly certain family members treat my sister, who is very light skinned, or other family members who are light skinned. It was funny because my dad's family had a lot of family members, siblings, and every sibling in my dad's side has a lighter skinned child. Actually, the third child is always lighter skinned, which is really weird genetically. But they're always treated better than us darker skin. So, and I hear this in people down, I have family in Puerto Rico, I have family overseas, and it's the same. So
yeah, and I can give an example, and I know that Shay and others have heard of this. We, especially in the African American and Black community, we are very favorable to sororities and fraternities. Mm-hmm. And way back in the day, I'm not a member of this sorority, so I don't know if it's still.
It's not. I have family members in both sides. Yeah, it's not.
And in this particular sorority, if your skin color was not the color of a paper bag, you were not considered for their organization. And this is things that have just come down through the years. So you're like, wow, does that happen? Yes, it really does happen. It really does happen.
I have one example. It's actually in the Asian community, specifically Filipinos, because I am Filipino. Okay. It's the same thing, lighter skin, darker skin, and even the whole country even is promoting to whitening your skin color so that you can get treated better. The assumption or the stereotype is if you're darker skin, you're in an intense labor type of living, farmers in a coast or somewhere that's hard labor is required under the sun. And then if you're not, you're exposed, you always have the air conditioning home or things like that, so you have a lighter skin. So it still exists even here in the US. It's one in our community that we're struggling on.
Yeah, it's the caste system, right? So there's whole books and documentaries on that. And the bleaching industry over in Africa and certain countries is huge, $1 billion industry for that reason. The same in India and many other countries. So I know Heather has her hand raised, Johnetta.
Okay, hi, Heather.
Hi, I think as a Caucasian woman, that's always something that it just never occurred to me. And so that's something that I wasn't even aware happened, because I think that as a Caucasian person, we, hopefully we're brought up to, to respect everyone regardless of the color of their skin. And so when we hear that type of colorism exists in specific races or other demographics, that was just really surprising to me. It was something that I just didn't realize could even affect various members of the African American community. I assumed that it was kind of like you understood the struggle that each of you had or felt, and that it was the same. So that was very enlightening to me. A couple of years ago, I think, when I first started hearing about this, and I'm ashamed of my ignorance in this area, but I just found it so powerful that it's not just, you know, Caucasians feel this way about people whose skin is different.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I'm glad that you've been enlightened, and all of us. I mean, all of us is happening too. Jennifer?
My mother-in-law told me that her mother used to give her a bath with lemons and scrub her skin to try to lighten it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you know what? We don't think about it. And I think our parents don't think about what happens in our environment gets in our spirit. It gets in us. You know, I remember one time growing up that my mother said something negative to my nephew. And I started to cry, and I said, don't do that. Don't tell him he's that. And it was something negative. I said, do you realize that will get in his psyche? And we are helping mold these people around us, but we should do it in a positive manner, right? Oh, thank you all for sharing. Anybody else before we go on? If you have something, please raise your hand. I can't see, but they will help me. They will help me see you all and call on you.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, so as most of you know, I am married to a Hispanic woman. And it was maybe 2 years ago, there were 2 incidents that happened within my family. And it was just pure ignorance. My parents have a Hispanic family that lives across the street from them. And we were all at my parents' house. And the one day, my dad goes, yeah, the Mexicans across the street. And I said to my dad, I was like, how do you know they're Mexican? And he goes, what do you mean? I was like, do you know that they come from Mexico? And he looked at me and he was just like dumbfounded, because he really did not think he was saying anything wrong, but we had to educate him. And I was like, listen, Dad, they're a Hispanic family. That doesn't make them Mexican. And it was recently he referred to them as Hispanic, and he even said, I'm trying to do better.
Good. That's great.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
I think that's a generational thing, because I don't think it's a race thing, because I notice people, baby boomers, my parents, everybody's either Chinese or Mexican. I have to really educate them often. Stop calling people Chinese and Mexican. Okay, because the Asians, they come from a multitude of countries, and so do Hispanics. Stop doing that, you know. So, and I take it. I get a little aggressive with it when I talk to my family. Like, you're wrong. Stop. And they call me, Shay's always politically correct. Yes, stop. Yeah, I think it's more of a generational thing than it is like a race thing. You know, white or black. I think they're just generationally they're trained that way. Yeah.
But you know what, Shay? Thank you for sharing that. But we have to help those around us.
You do.
Because when they know better, we expect them to do better. Okay. And I'm going to move this along. We only have a look. I am so enjoying this. So I get a gold star for this.
You do.
But what I want us to do next, before we don't hit the play just yet. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about diversity conversations. And I want, this is rather long, and I didn't get a chance to check it out. I mean, you know, to actually get the buy-in from the rest of the committee. So, and I think Sonja helped me. We cut this video down some because it is long, and we didn't know where to start it and where to stop it because we wanted to play it all. So it is still a little long, but I think it is worth us showing, if you don't mind, Shay.
Oh, please.
I'm going to shut up. We're going to show it, and then we're going to keep this in mind when we go into our diversity conversations. Okay?
Yeah, and Johnetta, I'd love for people just to take a note if they have like a pen in hand, just anything that sticks out to you or strikes a nerve or something, you know, that just kind of like, oh, you know, dinged your ear a little bit.
Sounds good.
Can we set it up then to say, before we play it, since we're not starting in the middle, who this is and the title? Yeah.
You would ask me that now. I don't have it written
No,
down.
I see it. So it's Michael Welp, and he talks the title of this TED Talk is White Men, Time to Discover Your Cultural Blind Spots. I watched the whole video. We can share the whole link. It's an amazing video. So, but you
All
can go.
right. Thank you for setting this up for us, Ms. Shay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's go with it.
So white men, we don't know we're part of a group. We also don't know that we have a culture. We're like a fish in water. We rarely have to leave our cultural waters. And so we have a least awareness of them. The culture, our culture permeates our schools, our institutions, church, businesses, most places we go. So we have the least awareness of it. I love my culture, and I've also come to see that when I overuse its strengths, those strengths can become weaknesses. So what are some of the traits of white male culture? One is rugged individualism, and I love that part of me. I love that pull myself up by my bootstraps, put my head down and work hard. It has served me really well. And I know I can overuse that as others can too. Any of you ever know of white guys who get lost and refuse to ask for directions? Did that happen recently? Just so I'm modeling white guys, you can actually read directions here. So, also, I love the action orientation. That's another aspect of our culture. And that action orientation is about doing and getting things done. I like to fix things. I like to solve problems. I can also overuse that problem-solving mindset. Any of you ever have to tell your white male spouse, I don't want you to fix this, I just want you to listen? Anybody hear that? White guys, you ever heard that before? Also, our culture teaches us that we can't be rational and emotional at the same time. So we leave our emotionality behind. Other cultures don't do that. When I live in this invisible to me cultural box, I don't even think of it as a culture. I just think of it as being a good human or a good American. And I judge others by this invisible cultural box, and that puts them in a place where they feel judged. Unconscious bias, that's what it is for me, which is that it's like a background operating system on autopilot that I don't even know is running in myself. I might say I'm culture blind, or I might say I'm gender blind, and that I just treat everybody the same. I don't realize that others hear that as having to fit into my cultural box. And I don't even know that I'm causing that assimilation in others. Others can be frustrated because they know they have to leave part of themselves at the door. And what's even more interesting is we do that to ourselves as white men. We also fit into the cultural box. And when we do that, we leave some of our humanness behind. The second thing that most white men don't know is we don't know that others are having a different experience in the world. Most of us just naturally connect on sameness and commonality. In fact, intercultural research shows that when you engage difference, most people either deny or minimize those differences. And that pattern shows up for younger generations as well. And yet, women, people of color, and others have different experiences. And if I'm only connecting on sameness, I'm not seeing another part of their reality. It's not that my view of the world is wrong, more likely it's incomplete. So, for instance, I don't have to think about my own safety. If I go jogging at night, most of the time I'm pretty comfortable even going alone. I travel on business a lot. I arrive late into airports and I drive to the hotel. Sometimes I get lost. And I'm not too worried about that. It's just not easy, but it's not unsafe for me for most of the time. Many women would want to arrive in the hotel before dark and would want your hotel room to be off the ground floor and not near an exit. I was traveling with my business colleague Bill to Kalamazoo, Michigan to work with an executive team. Well, right after I flew into O'Hare Airport, thunderstorms closed the airport. Soon I found out there were no more flights to Kalamazoo and there were no more rental cars. Bill's rugged individualism kicked in, and he propositioned a taxi to take us all the way to Kalamazoo. We got there 2:30 in the morning, and by 8 a.m. that morning, we were standing in front of the executive team, proud and talking about how our adventure was and we were going to get there, failure wasn't an option, and that rugged individualism. Well, there was one woman on that team. She raised her hand and she said, I would have never gotten into that taxi and driven across rural America at night with a stranger as a taxi driver, and I would have made up an excuse so you wouldn't think I wasn't a team player. I looked at her, and I looked at Bill, and I looked at the group, and I said, I teach this stuff, and I'm blind to it at the same time. The word privilege is a hard word for us as white men because we don't feel privileged. We actually feel like we've worked incredibly hard for everything we have. And I would say a deeper perspective is, yes, we have worked incredibly hard, and there are things that we haven't had to navigate or negotiate or think about that other groups are. For instance, more examples of how my life might be different being heterosexual. At work, I can have a picture of a loved one on my desk and not worry about what other people think about, or not worry that it might hinder my next promotion or get me fired. As a cisgendered person, I can go out on the spur of the moment with friends and know that I can find a bathroom that I can use without being harassed or beat up. As a white person at work, people don't look at me and think I got my job because of affirmative action, and therefore have me feeling like I've got to work twice as hard to prove I'm qualified. Or I can easily find mentors of my race at all levels in most organizations. Or I can buy pictures, postcards, greeting cards featuring people of my race easily. Or I don't have to have the talk with my white kids about how to literally stay alive if stopped by the police. So for me, the layers of privilege go on and on. Being able-bodied, or might say temporarily able-bodied, I didn't have to figure out how to negotiate my way through this facility to give this talk. Being Christian, people know my holidays, and they align with time off. So privilege is stuff that I don't have to deal with. It's not having to navigate or deal with some of those things. It's not something I chose. And what happens is others assume we as white men know about our privilege and that we see it. And they assume we just don't care or want to hoard our privilege. So they attribute negative intent onto that privilege. When we start to see our privilege and own our privilege, it removes the burden from others to have to educate and prove to us their different realities are real. I can use my privilege honorably. For instance, if I'm in a meeting and a woman shares an idea and it's ignored, and a few minutes later a man repeats that, I can use my privilege to point out to my male colleagues that, hey, that was originally her idea. If she was to do that, she might be seen as having a chip on her shoulder around men. When we acknowledge other people's experiences as valid and let our hearts be impacted by their experience, we create more trust and more openness.
All right. That was good. So I am so glad that Shay put the link in the chat so that you can see the entire from beginning and to the end. And I encourage you to do so. The first time that I saw this, I was like, wow, he is bold, number one. Number two, he really hits home. How do you all feel about it? Talk to me. I know we're going to talk about diversity conversations even later when this is over, but I cannot miss this moment if someone has something they want to share right now. Anybody?
Jill has her hand up.
Jill.
Hi, it took me a minute to figure out how to raise my hand. Oh my gracious, I can't wait to watch the rest. There were a lot of things that popped out for me. So I am married to a Black man. My children are biracial. So I'm very conscious of the fact that I can be away from them and show up as a white person. And when I'm with them, I'm very conscious and aware of my environment and safety and things of that nature in a much different way than when I am just myself as a white person. The privilege part where he talks about how it's hard for white men because they've worked really hard for everything and they feel this kind of sense of, but I have achieved on my own back kind of thing. I have personally witnessed that in conversations and dialogue where there's a resistance because they feel like, but I've worked hard, you know, I've achieved. And then the last thing that I'll say is I've also been in rooms as a white person where the bias in the dialogue and conversation is very apparent because I'm white. And then I've been fortunate to be able to use my voice to express why those things are inaccurate, in order to help, you know, them to understand and become educated. But I don't think that I would have been able to do that if I hadn't had my own family in the back of my mind always. So yeah, I can't wait to watch the rest of this, and thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Dan has his hand up.
Yes, I was just going to say, had an experience that yesterday that woke me up a little bit. I went to a local post office to change our business address, and there's at the front there's a door that's being repaired. There's a note saying use other doors. You have to pull the other door. So it's a simple act, but I went and had to wait at the counter for the postal service staff to help me, and they said, you know, with that door there, that's limiting customers that have, you know, physical disabilities. And I said, you know, I didn't think about it that way, but I imagine if you have a walker or a wheelchair, you really are dependent upon the staff or somebody else to let you in. So just one of those things I didn't think about until they mentioned it on that issue.
Yeah. And a lot of times we're just on autopilot and we don't think. And there were so many videos out there. This one, of course, was something that we all agreed on, and it really hit not necessarily a nerve, but I thought it was necessary that we hear this. And it brought to mind for me is that as a Black woman, oftentimes people think, especially a Black woman with a doctorate, we can be in a room, and I can go in a room with my white colleagues, and they always address them as the trainer. Always address them. I'm the one with the title, but I am never recognized. And I had someone else that was telling me that she's having difficulty maneuvering at work because she can say something and she is viewed as the angry Black woman. Someone else that's not Black can say the same thing and it's, oh, they just having a day or whatever. But it really impacts how we move through the world. You know, and I think Shay know when I was over Walter Reed Army Medical Center, I had 1,000 employees. I would walk in there, I led that program. And if I would walk in with my white colleague, they never saw me as the general manager over everybody. You know, and I got what I got because of affirmative action. When I tell people that I went to UNC Chapel Hill, oh, they had to meet a quota. They just erased the fact of what my GPA, my 4.0, my 4, whatever it was. All of my achievements, they just says null and void. And it makes you, it affects you. It impacts you. Anybody else? I'm sorry.
No, I can agree with all of that, been through all of that. And yeah, it's just, so I just want to honor you and everybody in the moment that's dealt with that kind of whatever, racism, sexism, prejudice, discrimination. I think, so it does something to your psyche, as you said earlier. It does something to you mentally. And I think we're going to address that in a future workshop, because I think we're always, which is great. We need to set a foundation with this education on these terms and what this looks like. But then on the other side, how does that affect you, right? I don't know. I've been watching this it's crazy series on Hulu called The Other Black Girl. I don't know if you guys seen it. It's pretty crazy, right? I seen Jackie. And I was like, whoa, like, I mean, even for our white males and white females, y'all need to check out that series because it just brings a whole different vibe to racism and sexism and discrimination, and then how Black women treat each other, and the crabs in the barrel mentality that the Black community has, and that many communities, is not just Black community. But yeah, that's very interesting. I wanted to point out from the video when I watched this, it was mind blowing, but that when he said white men can't be rational or emotional, or they don't believe they can, and other cultures don't do this, I'm like, yeah, they do. My Black husband don't think he's not. So I think that's a gender thing too, you know, like, nah, I'm rational. I ain't gonna, my emotions, you know, and I'm sure it's because of the way he was raised too, that, you know, you leave your emotions to a side when you're a man. You don't cry, you don't do all that. So when you're making decisions, you're not even thinking about the emotional aspect. So even that's deeper than the external stuff, right? That's the emotions and mentality and stuff. And so all of that plays into it and it affects all of it. So just a great video. So anybody else?
Hey, do you all remember that show, White Men Can't Jump?
Yeah. They redid it recently on Hulu, by the way. Yeah.
I don't know why I thought about this. I don't know why.
It was Woody Harrelson, right? And what's his name? Yeah, that was a good movie. Yeah.
Woody and Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. Thank you. I was about to say that. Yep, Wesley Snipes.
Okay, but we're going to come back to some other diversity conversations. I only have about 3 or 4, I think, additional slides, and I'll be finished. And I know you all are maybe tiring of me. Don't show me, but I know you may be doing that. But we're going to go on a little bit. Okay. Now that we've talked about some of the terms, we've discussed a little bit of the impact. Let's talk about some of the benefits of diversity and inclusion. Now, I could have gone and got a lot of numbers, but I didn't. So this is and there are other advantages of the benefits of diversity, but look at it. It fosters creativity and innovation. When you have people that are at the table that's giving different perspectives and different experiences, and everybody's in there together, having to come up with solutions and problem solve and all of that, you would be really surprised of all the difference that the differences coming together will make. It improves recruitment and retention, because I remember telling someone before, they were complaining, oh, I can't find such and such and such and such. I said, you know what? If you keep fishing in the same pond, you're going to get the same fish. Okay? When you go to other diverse and maybe even out of the box and unusual areas to try to recruit, you will sometimes get a diamond in the rough. You know, so it improves your return when you recruit and have retention. It increases collaboration, decreases employee turnover. When people feel like they belong and they want to be there, they don't run away from that. So turnover goes down. It provides a safe environment, free of judgment. It improves business performance. Now look right here, according to Deloitte, this is a study that they did. It increases innovation by 20%. This is diversity and inclusion now. It enables group to identify and reduce risks. Everybody wants to reduce risk. So this is something that they do. And then they talk about you have more buy-in. And one of the high returns, what did they say? A high commodity? I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it builds trust. That is an incredible thing when you have trusting staff and management, and they can exchange ideas and feel comfortable enough with each other to do that. Everyone feels like they are important and that they have impact and that they have significance. It increases inclusion, increasing inclusion increases team performance. Look at that, by 17%. The quality of your decisions go up by 20%, collaboration by 29%. And this is just a snippet. And I know that maybe Sonja may bring in some other numbers later, because she's a numbers lady. She's got it down. So she might introduce us to some other numbers. I'm not sure, but anyway, let's go to the next one. Our next slide. How do I get started? Everybody says, oh, this is really good. And we have a lot of education and we don't know what to do. If you all remember Stephen Covey's suggestion to begin with the end in mind. And one of those things is decide what is your DEI goal and what is its purpose? I know that some of these were some of the reasons that some people came up with, some organizations, they wanted to avoid discrimination lawsuits. Somebody else wanted to foster an inclusive workplace. Somebody else was directed by their board of directors that you got to have more diversity. So, or is it to recruit top talent? Decide, you and your staff, you are, whether you're the CEO or whether you are in a leadership role, that leadership group need to decide, why are we doing this? You know, not just mindlessly coming up with something, but we have a goal in mind. And then what you should do also is identify change agents. What do I mean by that? Identify those individuals that are going to be the champions of this. They will help push it out in your organization. They will help the influencers. The influencers are people that's why we have a whole category of people on TikTok that's called influencers. They can go buy this cream. All you have to do is rub it on this spot and you'll never have another wrinkle. Everybody goes out by the millions and buy this stuff. So find you an influencer in your organization that can help you, that will help you change things around your area. And then what about having allies? What is an ally? They use their power, position, or privilege to uplift and help others. So find that ally, okay? And then access your organizational change. So find out how ready are they? Find out what's going on right now. Don't just jump in with ideas, but find out where you are. You might have some of these champions and allies and influencers right there and not even know it, okay? I tell people, look at your employee resource groups. If you don't have any, maybe you can start some. Collect benchmarking and plan and implement your changes. Okay, next slide. Okay, these are some additional considerations. Look at your current organizations. Do all employees have equal access to opportunities and rewards? How do you determine your promotions? I was working with an organization and it was one of our government organizations. And they were saying, oh, we want all these people. We need more diversity in our GS-15 and up and our SES. I said, well, where are you going to get them from when you don't have them in your pipeline? They're not going to magically appear. So, okay, that's just me on my soapbox right now.
It makes sense though.
Okay.
Johnetta, Adam has his hand up.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Johnetta. Hey, quick question. So on the idea of a change agent, that can be both like a person, but that could also be an idea, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I think you will need that person to move that idea. You agree?
I definitely do, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sonja. Anybody else? Because again, I can't see. So I'm not going to list all of these, but these are just some of the ideas that I found in my research, things that I've experienced. Look at the third bullet from the bottom. What reading materials in your lobby? I know that we say that is very simple, but I know that I've gone places and they've had all this GQ and they had all this, and the organization had nothing to do with what being a GQ, but it kind of put people in a box. So look at anyway, I'm not going to go into it. Looking to there's so many aspects, but I think we are, Chrissy, are we going to be able to send out this PowerPoint to people?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Oh, I'll make sure that it's ready to do that. But yeah, so you will see some of these. And if you find some other ideas that you can shoot to me that I can add to my toolbox, I would love it. I would love it. So these are just some additional considerations. And next slide. Some additional resources. These are some books, these are some links, and we have some more, but these are just some we put in here that you can grab. Bye,
Jackie.
Bye, Jackie. Okay, and now I think our next slide. We want to tell you, and I'm gonna give it over to Shay or maybe Sonja, when this is just coming up, our next training, our next workshop. But I think that we have a few minutes and we want to open it up to some of the conversations that I just kind of zoomed through. And
yes,
I want to show my last slide.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for listening to me. I really enjoyed preparing this for you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It ain't over yet, but let's give a round of applause to Johnetta. She was amazing. Yay. She's always amazing. But yeah, definitely catch us on our next one in October. That'll be out. Save the date and more information, or you can register for that coming up in October. So invite some of your other colleagues and friends and family to participate in that one. And Sonja, if you want to lead us in some Q&A for the next, I guess we have 21 minutes, but we don't have to take that long, maybe 10 minutes.
Sure. Johnetta, you are amazing. You know you are, right?
Thank you.
I always think of these conversations like an 18-wheeler driving down the road, and you know that they have a lot of blind spots, but until you see like the picture that the safety boards put out, like there's space in front, there are the spaces beside, but there's multiple spaces and the spaces behind you. And you start to realize as a person, you're the 18-wheeler, and there's all of these perspectives and components that are around you all the time that you may just not be in tune with. What came up for you today as we're kind of looking at all of Jonetta's presentation? Anything else coming up for you?
Just open your mic and share. Anybody that we haven't heard from? Patricia, Veronica, Christy Corrick, Gwen. Yes. How do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry.
It's CPay.
CPay. Okay. Hi.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm from South Africa, and that's where I currently am based, working virtually for a company based in the US. And I studied in Ireland, actually, Europe.
Oh,
so wow. The epiphany that I experienced watching that video and just listening to this conversation is that I realized that in some of the instances that I've been, the experiences that I've had coming from an African country, I realized that I've left myself sometimes at the door, left parts of myself to feel like a certain level of integration into the communities that I've needed to integrate with, I'd say, because that's where I was. So I'm just like, oh, I thought this was, I thought I was integrated, but maybe it was a simulation. So what a beautiful session. I learned so much, and I look forward to kind of showing more of myself and really being like, well, just being comfortable with being who I am, and then see where that leads, because not everyone is as evolved and as welcoming to accept all of us. But I think starting with these conversations, we move ourselves forward in order to achieve that. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
I love that, CK. Thank you so much for sharing. I do Motivation Mondays on my social media, and what struck for me when you said that is I think a lot of people take the world happening to them, but at the same time, you're happening to the world. And I love the idea of you seeking balance in that right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And just truly being authentic, right? I know as I get older and I'm just more authentic and I show up as who I am, I'm more at peace. I'm more confident than I thought I was. It's not my ego driving me, it's my spirit. And it's just more, I think it's beautiful because the days of having to leave myself like you did, CPA at the door, that really was draining and exhausting. So, I mean, I have literally let my hair go and everything. Like, I'm doing my locks, I'm being true to who I am. I'm not letting any of that set me back. I don't care if you don't want to hire. Well, it don't even matter to me anymore because I own my own business. But still, like, it's just different and being authentically you. For 20, 30 years, I walked into many organizations. It was not, I was trying to assimilate. And that's exhausting. So proud of you, CPA. Proud of you.
And I love the
Thank
journey
you.
that we're all on together, right? Because like Yom Kippur is on Monday. And I always thought, I've worked with some colleagues that are Jewish for many years, and I always thought that I was, very aware. But, they have to take off time for major holidays. And so over the years, we've gotten more and more acclimated to making sure that we're acknowledging, her holidays and what's happening. And I noticed that because we are making efforts, she brings in, different foods and things. So like, it's a journey. It's not a destination for any of these pieces. Jennifer, you are next.
Yeah, I'm just having sort of three thoughts in general as we're talking. One of them is to listen to the voice in my head and just question, when I'm putting people in a box, just try to listen to those thoughts. And that makes me think of the word humility, to have the humility to say to yourself, I could really be wrong. I could really need to change my perspective. And then to question also, just to question how I am in the world. So those are kind of the three things I'm taking away after this conversation.
Wow. Beautiful.
Jennifer, I love that. And I call that like turning on that curiosity.
Curiosity. That's a good word.
Yep. I dealt with a student, and it was really, really igniting my inner fury for a while. And then I sat back for a moment and I thought to myself, you know what? This person is not trying to be annoying. They're actually just very conscientious, and they're trying to do the right thing, and they are hammering it because that's important to them, right? So those little like staying curious moments took it from a complete, irritating piece to like, I really want to help this person because they're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Johnetta, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to share. Can I, I can share now that I'm not in the teaching, got my hat of an experience, because I only have one child. She's a millennial. And so I realize sometimes what they are going through, because when we're in this world every day, we kind of get in it and we don't see other things. She was offered a position recently. And it was, and I said, oh, I'm not going to say who it is, but I've already said, and we all family here. Don't you all tell her that I told you all this.
It's a recording.
Recording. Right. Oh, God. Okay. But anyway, it was an awesome position, and they were talking about all these things. And she went and looked at their website, and they had not one person of color. Not an Asian, not a Black, not anybody of color. They did have some white women, but then they talked diversity, and she told them she did not want the job because she looked at their leadership, and there was nobody. There was nobody that looked like her. And that really, really, that helped her make a decision. And then we wonder why we're having retention and recruiting problems.
Representation.
People are now, they used to say, okay, I'm not going to be my authentic self. I'm just going to get in the door. They're not doing that anymore. They're not. And so we need to know that and adjust. I went to a place down in Texas where this person they flew me down there. They were bringing me in to talk about they want to increase their diversity. But when I got in there, I got to do my presentation. I was the only Black, and I was the only female. I told them, and I know that they said they're gonna call me again, but they may not. And I told them, I said, oh, you all are not real. I said, it's a buzzword for you.
So can I play devil's advocate here for a second?
No, you can't. But no, you can't.
I heard you guys say, you know, you need to have a change agent. So if you're looking for someone to be like you or look like you or that has represented or can represent you, and there's not anyone there, why can't you be the person to start that? Because you can't get there if nobody's willing to take that first step.
Right. But I'm saying
I know that that's probably unpopular opinion, but I mean, I've had that before. I've been in a Rotary Club where it's all old white men, and I joined when I was 20, and I was the first woman and the first person under a certain age, and I was like, well, how are we going to get there if there's nobody else there?
Well, that might be, but maybe they did not want to be. That doesn't necessarily mean it had to be that person.
But I feel like you can't then judge the company that's trying to.
I think you can if you're saying that if you are purporting that you are diverse and that you have this and you have that, but it's not reflected.
It shouldn't all lie on one person's arm, so a few shoulders. Like I know where Christy's going with this. I've been the token Black many times, is what we call it, and I've accepted that role. And then when I come in, I'm the only one, and then many other people of color follow, many other women follow. That's great, and I've done that over and over. But after a while, it's like, I'm tired of this. The burden is real. I'm tired of always being that person. But I agree, somebody has to be the change, and it usually has to start with that one person. But in 2023, and I know my husband gets mad when I say this, he's like, why do you keep saying that? I said, it's 2023. It's not 1955. Okay, but I understand that I have to be that person sometimes, and I choose now if I am or not, because I'm tired of being the token. I'm tired of having this burden. But then I'm like, I guess I have to, because ain't nobody else going to do it. So Christy is right. Somebody's got to do it. But sometimes if you've done it so many times, you're like, I don't want to do this no more. So.
And that is my point, Shay. It has to be someone.
It has to be
someone. I'm like you. And some people are not built for it, and we understand that. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to date myself, but when I started college, there was not many of us. I have led organizations, I have led departments, and I've been the only one. It does get tiring and it does get exhausting, and you try to encourage other people, but some people are not built for it. But my point in pointing out, and I understand what you're saying, Chrissy, and I'm not saying you're wrong by a long shot, but I'm saying that sometimes you want to be able to step in and see, and not always have to be the one to be seen.
What I appreciate specifically about this chamber, and this group, is that we're able to have these conversations, and be able to express ourselves and be heard, and continue to challenge one another in order to continue to build our awareness. And that was really evident years ago when I joined the chamber, and we started to challenge ourselves of what we looked like, what our composition looked like, and who we represented, and do we look like the population that we represent. Small business, large business, all kinds of backgrounds and expertise. And before we get too far into our Q&A, I do want to recognize Shay and her work with the chamber in leadership. She's moving into the chair position this coming year, but really specifically with this group, the DEIA group, because she pushed it forward and said we needed to have a committee around this, and we need to charge and have these conversations, and they're really important conversations, and it wouldn't be happening without her. So thank you, Shay, for your leadership in this area.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sonja, can I say I agree with you wholeheartedly on the chamber looking like our members. And it's been an incredible journey, because I have been with the chamber from the beginning. I was with the chamber prior to it becoming the chamber. And I know what it looked like. And you all were brave souls. to get up and say, look, the status quo is no longer, we're going to shake this thing up. And I wasn't brave enough, or I wasn't making enough money in my business to be able to help you right then. But you all made the change, and it is a delight to be a part of this chamber. And I talk about it all the time. I'm not going to go off on the soapbox, but I love this chamber because you all really are making an impact and making a difference in the community.
And to Christy's point, with the conversation we were just having, you know, when I joined the leadership of the chamber, there wasn't a huge diversity component, but we started to have those conversations early on in my tenure, and it wasn't hard conversations to have. What was hard about it was really trying to figure out how we authentically moved forward to represent our population in the Central Maryland area. And, you know, even 2.5 years ago, to have authentic conversations with people that did not belong to our chamber and said, I'm going to go to PG, I'm going to stay in Howard, I'm going to go these other places because I feel like I'm better represented, and continuing to ask the questions and being curious like you are, Jennifer, to have those conversations. So, you know, part of this this process is also deputizing each other into continuing to have really courageous, curious conversations for yourselves and around you, to ensure that we're all kind of moving our own personal, what is it, the gas needle a little bit forward. So we're getting to the end of our time. Thank you for those that are still on and are really engaged in the conversation. Any final thoughts from anyone? I know, Johnetta, you will have your time. You will get the final thoughts. Don't you worry.
She was ready too.
Johnetta and I give each other a really hard time. Just be clear, we've worked together for a very long time. So it's one of the ways that we have a good time with what we do. All right, Johnetta, not seeing anyone taking the mic. You take that mic and you run with it.
Oh, no. Maybe Chrissy can end it, but let me say this before we go. I have enjoyed this, and I have enjoyed you all and your participation. What's the song? I'm so glad we had this time together, because we really did get some input from you all. And thank you so much for taking the time, because you could have been anywhere else and you chose to be here with us this morning. Thank you so much.
I did all that, and hopefully we'll see you on the next workshop. Please spread the word. We want more participation so we can have even more great conversations, engagement. But I'll turn it over to Christy.
All right. So thank you. I know we're doing lots of thank yous and praise for these ladies, but I wanted to do my own. So thank you, Dr. Johnetta, Thurston, and Sonja, and Shay, for everything that you've done for the program and to get this event together. As was mentioned, we're having a follow-up to this program on the 18th of October. Following today's program, we're going to take the slide presentation, the recording of this session, the contact information for our presenters, and we'll send you also an announcement for that next event. We'll include that all in one email and send it out to all of you today. So you can follow up with us if you have any other questions or just to get registered for that event. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you to our speakers and presenters, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Is anybody going to Steve Stern's office tonight? If you are, I will see you there.
Yeah, we have networking mixer tonight. I'll be there.
All right, have a good day.
Bye everyone.